at the Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare in the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare of the Government of India. She specializes in pharmacology and toxicology and plays a crucial role in the regulation and evaluation of pesticides and agrochemicals to ensure they meet stringent safety standards for both human health and environmental protection. And her work also involves analyzing toxicological data for various agrochemical products and ensuring their compliance with national and international safety regulations. So through these efforts, she helps safeguard agricultural practices while minimizing the potential health risk associated with pesticide use. So we are going to allocate 15 minutes or so to a presentation, and we hope to learn as much as we can from her experience and dedication. Thank you so much, Dr. Swati Som. You can continue to share your screen. Are you able to share your screen from your side?
Yeah, I did it. Can you please
still
inform me that
loading.
whether you can see it? Okay.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Can you see the screen right now?
Yes, you may proceed. We are able to see. You can enter the presenter mode.
Okay. Thank you so much, Michael, for introducing me. And I surely want to congratulate the entire team to come up with such an interactive session. And thank you for inviting me as a speaker. And with this, I would like to start today's presentation. Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is Dr. Swati, and I'm a regulatory toxicologist, and I work for the Government of India. And basically, the thing which I deal with is a thorough examination of pesticides toxicity and its impact on environment and health, and thereby the system. So today's presentation is more about the overview of the presentation, and here it goes, how it is. My presentation title is Evaluating Pesticide Use in the Food Against its Toxicity. So, for this presentation, I would like to provide from my side of area how much expertise I am in. So the goal of today's presentation for me exactly is to convey what is the importance and how much is the importance of this pesticide toxicity, and what are the different roles of the regulatory bodies in assessing such pesticide toxicity, and thereby we can ensure the safety. Okay. So with that, I would like to start my presentation. Okay, now we already are very aware of the fact that pesticides are a crucial beneficial part of our life, right? But at the same time, from the very past decades, we are all the time listening to the same thing, that it is very hazardous, it is very harmful for the health, but still we continue to do so, right? Because the thing is over here, the pesticides do have a wide range of beneficial properties which we cannot eliminate from the product, right? Because it provides food safety, provides the quantity and the quality of the food, and the productivity and the yields of the crop is generally being enhanced. So there are various beneficial parts of this pesticide, right? So with this, though we cannot eliminate it entirely, but what we can do is that we can come up with certain ways by which we can regulate its use, so that it should not have any detrimental effect on the health or in the environment as well, right? So we already have a little bit of idea about the pesticides, because it's been a hot topic for a lot of poisoning cases, because previously, as there was no such regulations for this pesticide use, and through the people were very unaware how much to use and how much to consume it as such. So because of which we have found out there are a huge number of poisoning cases, there are a huge number of deaths. It is not only so, there are so many cases where after a decade later or so, we have able to understood that a person has consumed a pesticide for for a longer period of time, which they might get in contact through, might get exposure through a various of ways. Right, it can be from the occupational, that is if a person is working in the pesticide industry. So these people, they are in continuous consumption of the pesticide, and they are unaware of the fact that how much they're consuming the pesticide unknowingly. And there are also certain times that we are consuming the crops, and unknowingly we are consuming a lot amount of pesticides, which we are not aware of. Because one of the major health hazardous effects of this pesticide is that it provides a very long-term effect. It does not really show the acute toxicity until and unless it's a poisoning cases, where the intentional or accidental cases. But most of the time, these pesticides, they generally get accumulated in the body, and they try to show their active harmful actions only after a very long period of time. That is, it might cause cancer, it might have a reproductive health issues, it might produce neurotoxicity, developmental issues, and so on. Right. So these effects of these pesticides, we were not very aware of the fact that these pesticides, although at the time previously when it has been introduced, if you would know, they have received the Nobel Prize for the same. Right. So DDT was introduced, and it has such a beneficial role, and it was able to eliminate a major, not completely eliminate, but yes, could manage the certain serious diseases like dengue and malaria. So it was a hit at that point of time. But later on, after a decade, when they analyzed that this DDT, which has been used, which was being celebrated as a lifesaver, was also the reason for the death of so many. Right. So there were lots of birds, and the animals got extinct, and they came up to the idea that what would be the reason for it. And then when they come up, and then they found that these pesticides, which are supposed to be beneficial for us, is also the life-taking one. So with that idea, the regulatory bodies have come up now, where we are coming up in generations where this chemical pesticides are now being regulated by the regulatory body with a very stringent rule. And now they have come up with the certain alternatives as well. And in future, we hope that it might happen that we can completely eliminate these chemicals. But right now, what we can do is that we can ensure a very safe and a regulated use of these pesticides. So with this, we'll proceed before. Now, this slide of mine is generally discussing about why it is very important to perform this toxicity testing. Right. So the first thing is that it provides the various types of toxicity testing. Okay, so generally we use lots of in vivo and in vitro, even the simulation models. Okay, through that we go through a very extensive pesticide toxicity testing, so that we can also understand what would be its long-term effects, not only the acute activity, but also what would be its long-term effect if a person is exposed, for example, for a pesticide for a very longer period of time, whether it has if it has an ability to cause any cancer, or it can cause any kind of the neurotoxicity also, or it might have some other detrimental effects also. So these testings are very important, and every aspect of the health and the environment is generally being taken care of. And these testings are generally being done with the OECD testing guidelines. So based on the guidelines, it has been followed globally and all over the world. They follow the same guidelines, they follow the same principles, and thereby we do this risk assessment. Now, after understanding this, what we go is our second step, that is informed decision making. With the help of this toxicity testing, what we do over here is that we, as a regulatory body, all over the globe, we come up with a decision whether this toxic profile, which is being generated by the certain chemicals or certain pesticides over here, we can easily regulate whether it has to be banned, or it should have a very regulated use. It should not be used more, or it should be what are the different steps should be taken, or it should be taken only for 3 months or 6 months or so. So whatever the decision is supposed to be taken, it's all the decisions are made based on this approach. Okay.
Dr. Som,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. It looks
sure,
like
sure.
your slides, you're still on the first slide, and I'm assuming that you have moved on. I'm not sure if it's frozen or what.
Yeah, it is frozen. It could be frozen because I am right now in the fourth slide.
Okay.
Is it for everybody, or is it only with the case? If anyone can confirm me with this. I think there could be an issue with the internet here.
For everybody.
For everybody. Okay, my pardon. I think there is an issue with that of internet here. I would like to do it again.
No problem, thank you.
Is it okay right now?
Yes, we can see the
Yeah,
slide.
it's fine now.
Fine. Do you want me to push back and see the slide? Show the slide? Okay, I'll just give an overview as such.
Right,
So this
thank you.
was the first slide over here, right? So there was nothing as such. What we have told about the importance of pesticides, and at the same time, what are its detrimental effects. So this is about the overall overview of the pesticide use in the food production. And yes, with that, I have started with how important is this toxicity studies are. Is it okay? Is the slide visible?
Still not moving. I think you can enter presenter mode so that you can display. Yes.
It says presenter mode only. I think what's the issues? I'm not able to get it. Is it okay right now? No.
No, not yet. It only displays the first slide that you scroll to and then does not move from there.
I have no clear idea what is the reason over here. Just a minute. I'll start. I will try to open it again. Sorry for the delay.
In the meantime, whoever has a question can keep dropping them in the chat box. Somebody who's keeping an eye on them. Amina Shani is helping us with that. Thank you.
Can you see the slides now?
Yes.
Okay. Is it okay, right? Is it fine, right?
Can you try moving once so it can be confirmed if it is moving or not?
Yeah, I have just tried it. Anything you can see any changes?
Right now the intro first is there.
Oh no, it's not that. Okay, I have no clear idea about it, like why it's happening. So, meanwhile, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
That's okay, Professor. Just reshare it one more time and speak about your presentations continuously. Okay?
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. Is it visible now?
Yes, and it's moving. Thank you, dear.
Voila, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Right now, is it okay? Is it? I'm still moving it. Whether you can see it, I'm not going for a full
Yes,
screen here.
yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we were discussing about the importance of comprehensive toxicity testing, where I had discussed about holistic risk assessment, right? So we are going for a wide range of toxicity testing in order to find out what would be its effect on also not only on an acute conditions, but also after exposure of over a very longer period of time, whether it has any detrimental effect on any parts of the body or to the environment or to any such for the next generations as well. So this is what our holistic risk assessment approach is. And based on that, we go for our second point, that is informed decision making, by which the regulatory decisions are generally made, which is comprising of whether we need to ban based on the studies of any pesticides, or whether we need to still continue, and if we are continuing it, how much we're supposed to do it and how we are supposed to do it. So this is about the decision, informed decision making. With this, we come up with the third point, is that setting the safe exposure limit. So what does it generally explain is about the maximum residual limits and acceptable daily intake, right? So ADI and MRL, what are these? This actually provides us about the information that how much of any pesticide chemical can be taken on a daily basis. That if a person is consuming this much amount of pesticides on a daily basis through the crops, through their food, then it is considered to be safe, even if they are consuming it for the lifetime, right? So these exposure limits are easier uh, for us to understand that, okay, fine, these are the limits where a person might not experience any kind of harmful or hazardous effect even after exposure to the various long period of time. So this is what is one of the reason why we are performing this toxicity studies. And with that, we are going with that a final point, that is global standards. Right. So what happens over here is that with this testing, we can the trades between the countries over the food crops, over the imports and the various exports of any of the food products. So that becomes very simplified when we come up with MRLs and ADI. So basically, this is the whole idea why we go for our toxicity testing, right? So now I would like to give overview, a complete overview, how this testing is generally being done. Okay, and how this approach is actually useful, how regulatory bodies are helping it out in order to have a food safety, right? So the first is that we have to understand about the hazard identification. What does it mean? Hazard identification, that is that if any chemical or any pesticide which is present in that of a food, how much exposure of that food could be detrimental, or whether it has any harmful effects or no, or how much exposure is required to produce any kind of detrimental effect, and if at all it has any hazardous action, then what it could be, whether it has effect on genes, whether it has effect on organ basis, whether it is having the ability to cause any neurotoxicity. So what are these? So these are the factors which we generally first identify, and that is what is hazard identification. Then with that, we go for the next step, that is dose response assessment. What is these? These are that once we have completed that assessment, that okay, this particular pesticide can be responsible for the cancer, for example, for causing the cancer. Now, in this, we are going to analyze how much is the dose of any pesticide is responsible to cause that cancer. Okay, because it is not possible if it is case of accidental or it is case of occupational, there could be a chances, but when it is not so, when we are consuming it in the food basis, the amount which enters in our body through the crop is very, very minimal. So it might not cause an immediate effect. So it is very important to understand what could be the dose that would be responsible for this toxicity effect. With this information, then we are going to analyze the exposure assessment. What is this exposure assessment? This is that how much a person has to get exposed to that particular chemical to get that particular toxicity sign. So, for example, when we are talking with that in terms of a cancer, if a person is getting exposed for, say, 80 years, then only it might show the cancer. So, the chances that people might not be alive for the 80 years or 100 years or so. So, the chances of getting cancers for a lifelong period of time is quite minimal. Hence, we try to find out what is the exposure limit over here. And with that, we come up with the final stage, that is the risk characterization. As you can see from this picture itself, what do we do is that we take the data from these three assessments: hazard identification, dose response assessment, and exposure assessment. And then finally, regulatory bodies come into play, where what we do is that we check whether what could be the decision which has to be taken, whether we have to give the permit, or whether we have to ban the permit, or we have to restrict the permit. So all the decisions, or if it is being used, how much is supposed to be used. So all of these is generally based on the following above steps. So this is how the pesticide risk assessment is generally being performed. So with this, I would like to give a very briefly about explain about the toxicity assessment, right? So what are the different toxicity assessments we generally see, we generally perform in order to confirm that pesticide is safe to use for a daily on the daily basis, and the food which we are consuming is free of any toxicological signs, right? So we go for a various amounts of toxicity and extensive toxicity studies. For example, as you can see from here, it is carcinogenicity, whether it has any cancer causing ability, whether it has a genotoxicity, whether it has ability to cause any changes in the genes, whether it is neurotoxicity, whether it has any effect on the brain or to the cell, or it has the ability to cause, again, certain mutations or cancers or tumors. And reproductive and the developmental toxicity, for example, whether the chemical, if on a prolonged use, can cause any reproductive defects or teratogenicity, if you might have heard, that is the development of a limbless babies, which generally happens with the prolonged use of previously banned certain pesticides. And what could be other effects on that, whether it has oxidative stress, it can create an oxidative stress, or whether it has a skin toxicity, dermal toxicity, whether it has an impact on the immune system, or it has an impact on the eyes. So all of these studies are generally being performed through this toxicity assessment. So this is what briefly I have said over here. I think I'm running over the time, so I would like to quickly skip the slides. These are the certain things, acute toxicity, which we generally do it for a very short period of time to understand what could be its immediate effects, and followed by the chronic toxicity. So chronic toxicity is that if a pesticide is being, if these chemicals are exposed for a very longer period of time, what could be the impact? What could be the effect? So to analyze those, we go for a chronic toxicity. Similarly, we go for genotoxicity, carcinogenicity, and various effects, as well as we go for the environmental toxicity assessment. What are these? We generally see it's the harmful effects of these chemicals on the non-targeted organisms. For example, whether what its impact on the plants or the animals or the aquatic life, whether it has any effect on the beneficial insects. Because these all are very, very important to maintain our ecosystem. So any detrimental effect on any of these ecosystems of ours would have a very bad impact globally. So we go for this environmental toxicity assessment. Along with that, we also go with that of toxicokinetics and dynamic studies, which is actually the examination of the toxicity through the metabolic process. So if, for example, certain chemicals as such, when it gets into the body, it does not get metabolized, or if it gets metabolized and becomes a very, very highly toxic, and it does just stays in the body, does not eliminate from the body, and thereby it can cause a very, very harmful effect. Not immediately, but it could have an effect on later stages of life. So these are the certain toxicity testing which we generally do. And with this, I would like to say now what the global regulatory bodies that we want to be knowing is one of the not one of the. I would like to say that there are the various, there are the different regulatory bodies which are very, very stringently working together globally. One of these are like USA EPA, Environmental Protection Act, and then EFSA, that is European Food Safety assessment. So all of these are there. EFSA and EPA, along with that of World Health Organization, together comes together to form this MRLC, to form this ADI, which is acceptable daily intake, and thereby it provides the guidelines to ensure that yes, this pesticides are safe and we can consume it on a daily basis, but in a very, very, very minimal quantity, which will not produce any kind of toxicity, fine, whether it is consumed now or also on a daily basis, even after a lifetime of consumption, it does not produce any kind of toxicity to us or to the environment or to any of the animals or insects also. So this is how the regulatory bodies work. It not only works through this one, but also compliance it that whatever it is available in the market, whether they ensure it, whether whatever the food products are there, the pesticide residues over there are within the limits or no. If no, they take a very stringent actions, whether to ban those industries or chemical pesticide industries, or have a very, very stringent tools on they take permit protection from for the various import and export businesses as well. So all of these are generally being done by that of regulatory bodies. Not only that, regulatory bodies is also responsible for the various other functions. For example, policy and legislation for the production, manufacturing. Then it goes with that on registrations and quality control, trade, for distribution, use, and food safety, for the health and environment, waste management, packaging and labeling, name so. So everything over the pesticides from the manufacture till the sale and till the consumption, it is being regulated thoroughly and very stringently by that of global regulatory bodies in order to ensure the food safety. Right. So we are towards the end of our presentations. What are the different challenges? Yes, there are certain challenges. As we can see, there are certain data gaps. So we can also evaluate certain data by which we can also see that whatever the slightest toxicity effects which we see now, how we can carry out one extensive toxicity testing to even convey that, okay, right now we are free from any of the chemical pesticides and we are completely have an alternative, we are completely safe. So there are certain toxicity profiles, toxicity testing we need to do. And one major factor is the global variability, because the MRLs across the countries are quite different, because the different government agencies, authorities, according to their countries, make a different MRL. So this MRL values, because it has different values in the different countries, which makes the trade a little bit of difficult. So these MRLs and regulations are supposed to be harmonized. This is how a global variability can be acted upon. Now, the public perception is one of the major drawbacks here, because the pesticide safety is not being informed by many. People are not very informed about how they can manage this pesticide toxicity, how they can avoid, by taking different alternative approaches like organic consuming or more organic production. So we should educate the people with the so that we can have a better public perception. And also the emerging concerns right now, which is an endocrine disruptor. This is one of the major factor where we have to look into, where we have to put our eyes into, because this is a major concern right now. Because as we can see, with a one such example I would give, there is an pesticide which is atrazine. So this particular pesticide is responsible of creating more of female frogs when they have tested it. And even the sexual the preferences has been changed when it is being seen in that of an animal. So again, we have to see that endocrine disruptors, it should not have any impact on us, or we should be completely eliminating certain chemicals who has the potential to have any endocrine disruption property. So with that, we have a climate change impact. Everything we have to take care of. Now, this is the future directions and conclusions by this. What I mean to say is that we have to go for an advancement in the testing, because right now we are involved in animal testing and the in vitro testing. But in future, we are doing more research so that we can come up with the in silico models as well, where we minimize the animal testing models and so that we can get the same amount of the data and the same accuracy, but without involving the animal testing. And second, future directions for me would be the focus on the transparency, because the risk assessment which generally these regulatory bodies carry on does not have the public domain is not very aware of it. So it should be, the data should be of public interest, and it should be visible to all the candidates, to all the public, so that they can take their decisions by their own. And there should be a transparency in certain data. With this, the other one is risk communications. Communicating the complex risk assessment information to that of the public is very, very important. We need to educate the people around us. We need to educate the farmers, the applicators, so that they can clearly understand that what are the risks we are dealing with while handling or while using this pesticide. So my key takeaways over here is risk assessment, toxicity testing, and exposure limits are crucial components of ensuring the pesticide safety in the food, and regulatory framework is playing a critical role in protecting the public health and balancing the agriculture needs with the consumer safety. With this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Som, and thank you for your flexibility in handling the technical issues concerning the connection. I'll quickly switch to the question and answer session, and if you could field the questions from our attendees, that would gladly appreciate that. Amino, if you could take over from here. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aminu, and I'm a part of the team One Health Social Sciences, Food Safety, and Food Security. So we have a first question from Joseph from the chat box. Thank you, Professor, for the presentation. It's wonderful. So Joseph wants to know, why is it that some countries have banned the use of some pesticides while same pesticides are being used in other countries?
The first thing it would be the availability of the pesticides, because the pesticides again generally not all the countries have the facilities to manufacture these pesticides, so they are surely dependent upon the imports and then exports as well. So certain countries would like to go for. See, the thing is over here is even in global audience, some races would be more sensitive to certain chemicals, but while others not. So these testings are generally being done individually in every country, and if this country found that this chemicals does not impart any major toxic effects, although it is again very crucial to review back, but if they find out after an extensive review that it does not cause any harm, so they do not go for restrictions. But at the same time, it affects the trade, because if the other countries ban those products, then it surely impacts the trade. The country do not have the provision to export those products which are being used with these pesticides.
All right. Thank you very much. I hope Joseph is clear. All right. Thank you to Abde Adame for that insight too. Another question from Joseph again. He's saying that how is the policy of compliance to the pesticides? That's one. And he wants to know, are, are your borders porous to allow entry of restricted pesticides into the country? And next is he said some farmers prefer some of these banned pesticides because they are effective.
Okay. The answer would be is that the compliance of these pesticides is being thoroughly checked by the regulatory bodies, and they are extensively done by the country itself, right? So, for example, I am basically from India, right? So, India is having CIB&RC. So, what we do is that we go for an extensive pesticide review, toxicity review, whether it has any kind of effect or not. But if at all we find out that even after banning, these farmers are using it, then there are fines and as well as there are prison as well. So these are certain laws which has been taken care of. So all the countries, as far as I know, have certain laws which strictly abide by the rules, and they cannot use if it is already banned. The pesticide is already banned, so they're supposed not to do it. But the rules are very stringent in certain places. The rules are certain relaxations in certain places. So it again depends upon country to country basis. And to the second question of yours, if we say that what are your border porous allow the entry? No, it does not. If the once the product received, it goes into a quarantine center. Quarantine center is made that all the products which has been have arrived first has to go. We need to check the MRL values. If the MRL values does not allow us to accept it, the consignment will go back to the parent country. It does not enters into the country at all if it does not follow the same what Indian regulatory bodies are have prescribed. So this goes for every other countries as far as I know. So this is how it works. And the other one is that whether once the policies has already been made, now the regulatory bodies are also involved in continuous checking. So what happens is that, for example, chemical A has been registered, and they have given a certain permittable limit that is supposed to be within this limit. So randomly, at any point of time, these products is generally been taken up, been analyzed again, and if they found that MRL is not being followed, if that is done by that compliance policy, if it is not been followed, it would be strictly the action would be taken, and there would be a ban of the manufacturer as well as the fine will be taken, the prisons will be done also along with that who are using it. So these are the certain stringent rules which is generally been followed in order to maintain the food safety. I hope that I could answer your questions.
All right.
Thanks.
Joseph is saying thank you, Prof. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. We don't have any other question from the chat box. I don't know if anyone wants to ask. If not, then I'll hand over to Michael.
All right, thank you. And to our participants, please don't be shy to ask questions. If I were to ask one last question to Dr. Som, how do we deal with the issue of capacity? Because in order to track the impact of pesticides in real time, I'm assuming that there's a lot of testing to be done, and I'm not convinced that we have capacity in developing countries. Thank you.
Yes, it is true that funding is one of the major issues with that. But the testing is done for that often developed countries. Yes, it is. But for us, being in India, which is again in developing countries, we do have every state of us is having certain capacities, and we do random, pick up, and then we go for the rigorous testing, and we do follow up the rules. So the capacities again based on the fundings, it should be done, and this is something which is a safety matters, right? So the rules has to be very stringent over here. I think then everything would fall into its places.
Thank you so much. And If there's anybody who still has a question, you're welcome to drop it in the chat. Without further delay, we will move on to our next speaker. And just to mention that Professor Marcelo Iriti unfortunately could not join us today, so we'll move on to Professor Amani Thawat from Egypt. And I'll quickly introduce her because I see she's already in the call. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And the title of her talk will be on